The Cold War wasn't just a clash of ideologies. It was a trillion-dollar power game, a period in which the United States and the Soviet Union used money, credit, and secret trade networks to shape the world. Behind every missile and every speech, there was a balance sheet. And behind every enemy, there was a transaction. Welcome to Wealth Lore, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it seems. When World War II ended, the world split in two, or at least that's what we were told. On one side stood the capitalist West, led by the United States. On the other, the communist East under the Soviet Union. While politicians debated freedom and equality, economists built a system that tied the two sides together in ways no one dared to admit. The United States didn't just win the war. It inherited the world's gold. By 1945, nearly two-thirds of the planet's gold reserves sat in Fort Knox. That gold, and the dollar tied to it, became the foundation of global finance. The Bretton Woods Agreement made the dollar the world's reserve currency, fixed at $35 per ounce. Other nations were required to hold U.S. dollars as a guarantee of value. This wasn't merely economic policy. It was the blueprint of an empire. If a nation wanted to rebuild, trade, or borrow, it needed U.S. dollars, meaning it needed Washington's approval. In the East, Stalin built his own financial fortress, the ruble zone, protected by strict currency controls and central planning. In theory, the Soviet system didn't need dollars. Production mattered, not profit. Labor mattered, not leverage. But a command economy can't command everything. To purchase foreign goods, technology, food, machinery, the USSR still needed hard currency, dollars, francs, pounds. This was the silent contradiction of the Cold War, two enemies dependent on the same money. In the late 1940s, the U.S. launched the Marshall Plan, a $13 billion reconstruction fund for Western Europe. The official goal: rebuild allies and stop communism. The hidden goal: create dollar dependency. Countries accepting the aid had to buy American products and transact in dollars. Under the guise of generosity, it was an economic encirclement. Although the Soviets publicly rejected the Marshall Plan, by the 1950s they were secretly selling oil for dollars through Finland, Austria, and Switzerland. The two sides appeared to despise each other. Yet behind the scenes, everyone benefited. The West got cheap energy, the Soviets got foreign currency, and the rest of the world watched the propaganda. With post-war funds, the CIA created shell companies, shipping firms, and offshore accounts to finance operations outside congressional oversight. The KGB used the same playbook, establishing trade companies in neutral countries to access Western technology. Money was the only language both sides spoke fluently. In the 1960s, the Eurodollar market emerged in London, turning U.S. dollars held abroad into an unregulated financial pool. Soviet banks, unable to open accounts in New York, accessed dollars through London to buy Western goods. The irony? The American financial system built to isolate communism was indirectly funding it. By the 1970s, Soviet oil revenues hit record levels, and Western banks began financing Soviet projects. Companies like Pepsi, IBM, and Chase Manhattan quietly traded with the USSR. On the surface, ideological war. Behind closed doors, collateralized business. Every missile and every tank meant new debt. The arms race became a massive economic stimulus, with trillions spent on weapons never meant to be used. The military-industrial complex Eisenhower warned about became the heart of the U.S. economy. The Soviets sustained the same cycle with dollar-denominated borrowing. Both sides were trapped in the same dependencies: debt, energy, and illusion. When Nixon ended the gold standard, the dollar broke free from any physical constraint. For the U.S., this meant unlimited money creation and unlimited power. The Cold War didn't just become sustainable, it became profitable. With U.S.-Saudi agreements, oil pricing became 100% dollar-based. The dollar was no longer backed by gold. It was backed by energy. The oil shocks of the 1970s crippled Western economies, but enriched the USSR. By selling oil to Europe, the Soviets earned foreign currency and secured Western loans. In public, they condemned capitalism. In private, they depended on it. Western banks knew this, but profit outweighed principle. Every covert Cold War operation was financed by the CIA's unregulated black budget. The KGB funneled oil profits through neutral countries to buy embargoed technologies. By the 1980s, Soviet-Western trade exceeded $100 billion. Reagan called the USSR the evil empire. In public, while both sides relied on each other behind the scenes. Nuclear war never happened because the real mutually assured destruction was financial, not military. Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, these were the real battlegrounds of the Cold War economy. Both sides funded coups, counter-coups, insurgencies, and regime changes. Every revolution, every civil war was a transaction. Every freedom struggle was a supply chain. Swiss banks laundered money for both the CIA and the KGB. London became the global vault holding the profits of capitalism and the debts of communism. Governments debated ideology while bankers built globalization. When the Berlin Wall fell, many declared the end of history. But history didn't end. It turned into capital. The oligarchs of the 1990s were the former managers of the USSR's hidden financial networks. They didn't become wealthy overnight. They simply became visible. Modern sanctions, frozen reserves, energy crises, currency warfare, cyber attacks, they're all digital versions of Cold War financial tools. Power never cared about ideology. It cared about liquidity. That's why the Cold War never truly ended. It was simply rebranded as globalization. Today's money flows are the new interface for a game that's been running since 1945. Back then, the curtain was made of iron. Today, it's made of the internet. And behind the noise, the same people are still counting the profits. Because in every era, flags matter less than flows. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has always had the answers. I'll show you where to find them.